Recording in progress.
Hello, hello. 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 Hello, everyone. Welcome to class. Today is the last meeting for the semester. We shall be talking on several things and doing revisions on our end of semester class. And quickly, let's look at what we did last week. Last week, we looked at the African Union, formerly Organization of African Unity, which was AU, which is now AU. We looked at the Commonwealth of Nations. We looked at the objectives, that is the objective of the AU, according to Article 3 of its charter, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, the Organization of the American States, and the Arab League. We attended a critical review of their performance, that is the international, continental, and regional organization in their efforts to maintaining international peace and security. We also looked at the European Community, Economic Community, or the EU, and AU, the Economic Community of African States, the ECOWAS, and all of that, their implications. Today, we'll be looking at the role of international court and some case studies pursued by the pursuit for peace and security. The United International Court of Justice, ICJ, is the principal organ, judicial organ of the United Nations. It was established in June 1945 by the Charter of the United Nations and began work in April 1946. The seat of the court is at the Peace Palace in The Hague, the Netherlands. And of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations is the of the principal organs of the United Nations, it is the only one not located in New York, United States of America. The court role is to settle disputes in accordance with international law on legal disputes submitted by states, and to give advisory opinion on legal questions referred to it by authorized United Nations organs and specialized agencies. The court is composed of 15 judges who are elected for terms of office of 9 years by United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council. It is assisted by a registry, which is its administrative organ. Its official languages are English and French. How does the court work? The court entertains 2 types of cases: legal dispute between states submitted to it by them. There's a contentious issues and request for advisory opinion on legal questions referred to it by United Nations and specialized agencies, advisory proceedings. As advisory proceedings. Contentious issues. When we talk about contentious issues, only states, that is state members of the United Nations and other states which have become parties to the statutes of the court, or which have accepted its jurisdiction under certain conditions, may be parties to a contentious case. The court is competent to entertain dispute of any kind. by virtue of okay, so by virtue of the judicial court clause, that is typically when they are parties to a treaty containing a provision there whereby in the event of dispute of a given type of disagreement, interpretation or application of the treaty, one of them may refer the dispute to the court. Through the reciprocal effects of declaration made by them under the statutes whereby each has accepted the jurisdiction of the court as compulsory in the event of a dispute with another state having made a similar declaration. A number of these declarations, which must be deposited with the United Nations Secretary General, contain reservation, excluding certain categories of dispute. States have no permanent representative accredited to the court. They normally communicate with the registrar through the medium of their Minister for Foreign Affairs or their ambassadors accredited to the Netherlands. Where they are parties to a case before the court, they are represented by an agent. An agent plays the same role and has the same rights and obligations as a solicitor involved with respect to a national court. But we are dealing here with international relations, and the agent is also, as it were, the head of a special diplomatic mission with powers to commit a sovereign state. He or she receives communication from the registrar concerning the case and forwards to the registrar or correspondent pending pleadings duly signed or certified. In public hearings, the agent opens the argument on behalf of the government. He or she represents and lodges the submission. In general, whenever a formal act is to be done by the government representative, it is done by the agent. Agents are sometimes assisted by co-agents, the deputy agents or assistant agents, and always have a counsel or advocates whose work they coordinate to assist them in the preparation of the pleadings and the delivery of oral argument. Since there is no special international court of justice bar, there are no conditions to be fulfilled for counsel or advocates to enjoy the rights of arguing before it, except only that they must have been appointed by government to do so. Proceedings may be instituted in one or two ways. Through the notification of a special agreement. This document, which is of a bilateral nature, can be lodged with the court by either of the states parties to the proceedings or by both of them. A special agreement must indicate the subject of the dispute and the parties thereto, since there is neither an applicant state nor a respondent state. In the course publication, their names are separated by oblique stroke at the end of the official title of the case, e.g. Benin, Niger. Advocacy, adversary proceedings. Adversary proceedings before the court are open solely to and to 16 specialized agencies on any legal question. So the adversary, when we talk about the adversary, we're saying that the adversary proceedings before the court are open solely to 5 organs of the United Nations and to 16 specialized organs of the United Nations family. United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council may request advisory opinion on any legal question. Other United Nations organs and specialized agencies which have been authorized to seek advisory opinion can only do so with respect to legal questions arising within the scope of the activity. When it is when it receives when it receives a request for advisory opinion, the court, in order that it may give its opinion with full knowledge of the fact, is empowered to hold written or oral proceedings, certain aspects of which we call the proceedings in contentious cases. In theory, the court may do without such proceedings, but it has never dispensed with them entirely. A few days after the request is filed, the court draws up a list of those states and international organizations that will be able to furnish information on the question before the court. Those states are not in the same position as parties to contentious proceedings. Their representatives before the court are not known as agents, or their participation, if any, in the adversary proceeding does not render the court's opinion binding upon them. In general, the states listed are the member states of the organization requesting the opinion. Any state not consulted by the court may ask to be. It is rare, however, for the International Court of Justice to allow international organizations other than the one having requested the opinion to participate in adversary proceedings. With respect to non-governmental international organizations, the only one ever authorized by the ICJ to furnish information did not, in the end, do so, the International Status of Southwest Africa. The court has rejected all such requests by private parties. The written proceedings are shorter than, but as flexible as in contentious proceeding between states. Participants may file a written statement which sometimes form the subjects of written comments by the participant. The written statements and comments are regarded as confidential, but are gradually made available to the public at the beginning of the oral proceeding. States are then usually invited to present oral statements at public sittings. Adversary proceedings are concluded by the delivery of the adversary opinion at a public sitting. It is of the essence that such proceedings are adversary. That is unlike the court's judgment, they have no binding effects. The requesting organ, agency, or organization remains free to give effect to the opinion by any means open to it, or not to do so. Certain instruments or regulations can, however, provide beforehand that an adversary opinion by the court shall have binding force. For example, conventions on the privileges and the immunities of the United Nations. It remains, nevertheless, that the authority and prestige of the court attached to its adversary opinions that were the organs of agency concerned endorse that opinion that decision is, as it were, sanctioned by international law. Going through the role of international Court of Justice, you will notice that the court is a position to ensure there is a global peace. Series of states have resorted to referring their cases, both contentious and adversary, to the court since the end of the Second World War. Issues that would have led to another world war, like border, environmental, and sovereignty conflicts, and many more were resolved. The beauty of the whole scenario is the acceptability of the International Court of Justice judgment by the states concerned. Examples of such cases as well as well as various comments by international personalities could be found in the ICJ website, the case studies. Now, let's look at some cases. The border dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon, the Bakassi Peninsula. The Bakassi Peninsula has been a disputed piece of territory between Nigeria and Cameroon for decades and the source of several conflicts in 1981 and the early 1990s. The discovery of potential oil reserve in the water surrounding the peninsula has only heightened tension between the two countries. The International Court of Justice decided on October 10, 2002 that the peninsula and the territory in the Lake Chad region should be under sovereignty of Cameroon. Nigeria agreed to pull out of those areas by September 2004. It has given up 32 villages along 1,700 kilometers border from Lake Chad to the Gulf of Guinea, but still has a military presence in Bakassi. This border dispute gives rise to various issues such as citizenship of thousands of Nigerians now living within Cameroon territory. The result of Nigeria to keep a presence in the Bakassi disputed territory and the potential development of offshore oil reserves near the Bakassi Peninsula. The border between Nigeria and Cameroon over the Bakassi Peninsula and Lake Chad areas has been disputed for decades. The potential oil-rich peninsula is highly valuable for each country. On October 10, 2002, International Court of Justice decided that Cameroon will be awarded the disputed land. Even so, the maritime frontier between the two countries has yet to be demarcated, leaving a large area of dispute, a disputed ownership that is yet to be fully exploited for oil. Nigeria agreed to turn over the peninsula to Cameroon between July and September 2001. Nigerian troops remain in the disputed area. However, Nigerians are handed over to Cameroon 32 villages along the newly mapped 1,700 kilometer border from Lake Chad to the Gulf of Guinea. The current delay seems to be masking the political issues rendering the successful handover of the peninsula. Nigeria's parliament believes that the handover will be unconstitutional and demands a referendum on the issue. Even the UN body overseeing the negotiation, the Cameroon-Nigerian Mixed Commission between the countries, has indicated that technical problems have delayed the transfer of land to Cameroon. The commission set up by President Paul Biya of Cameroon and President Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria, then through the Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, is to determine ways to implement the ICJ ruling and move the two countries forward. The territorial change of English-speaking Nigeria to French-speaking Cameroonians has been difficult for both sides. It is estimated that over 60,000 people live in the 32 villages around Lake Chad, which Cameroon acquired in the handover. Thousands of Nigerians now living in the peninsula are not sure where they stand in terms of citizenship and may want to remain Nigerian as they remain associated with Nigeria. Some Nigerians are worried about the human rights record of the Cameroonian government. Cameroon and Nigeria have come to the brink of war several times over the ownership of the peninsula in 1981 and 1996. On May 15, 1981, a Cameroon National Radio News report stated that the Nigerian military patrol violated Cameroon's territory by infiltrating the peninsula as far as the Rio del Rail and opened fire on the Cameroon forces. Cameroon returned fire, killing 5 Nigerian soldiers. In 1992, 1933, the government openly killed some Nigerian civilians in Cameroon, stemming from the multi-party democratic government and growing militarism of the Anglophone autonomy. Although Nigerians were forced out of Cameroon during harassing tax drives, the Bakassi dispute intensified with 2 or more serious incidents that provoked more shooting, casualties, and deaths of soldiers in both countries. Now, the questioner is in 1994, from January, May 1996, there were borders, there were issues of border clashes between military personnel of Cameroon and Nigeria. As at May 6, 1996, diplomats reported that over 15 Nigerian soldiers had been killed and a number of them taken as prisoners. There was no information available for Cameroon casualties. The conflict escalated again on February 3rd, 1996. From the Ambazonian southern Cameroon side, the Anglophone movement in the Cameroon has no trust in the Cameroon government due to the failed implementation of a plebiscite treaty, which was to unite all Cameroonians under a federal form of government. The Ambazonians demand total independence as it viewed Bakassi as its own. From 1919 to 1958, Southern Cameroon was jointly administered with Nigeria. Nigerian map recognized the peninsula as part of the Ambazonian territory. There were violence recently in the region on June 1, 2000, when Nigerian troops fired rocket-propelled grenades at Cameroon security posts, killing one Cameroonian soldier. After 8 years of negotiation, the ICJ decided Cameroon had sovereignty of the Bakassi. The decision was based on old colonial documents. The boundary in the Lake Chad region were determined by the Thompson March and Declaration of 1925, 1929, 1930, and the boundary in Bakassi determined by the Anglo-German Agreement of March 11, 1938. The court requested Nigeria to quickly and unconditionally withdraw administration, police, and military from the area of Lake Chad under Cameroonian sovereignty and from the Bakassi Peninsula. The ICJ requested Cameroon to remove its citizens from anywhere on the new border between the two countries. The court fixed the land boundaries from Lake Chad in the north to Bakassi in the south. The court agreed with Nigeria that the equidistant line between Nigeria and Cameroon provided an equitable result. However, the court did not specify a definite location of off the coast of Equatorial Guinea, of where the maritime boundary between the two countries would terminate, or the threat. Nigeria agreed to give Cameroon full control of Bakassi on September 15, 2000, but failed to do so, believing their withdrawal will lead to the collapse of law and order. In addition, Nigeria claimed that the most democratic manner to decide Bakassi's sovereignty would be to hold a referendum, since the 300,000 people of the peninsula do not want to become Cameroonians. Nigerians believe that sovereignty of Bakassi is not a matter of oil or natural resources on land or in coastal water. It is a matter of welfare and well-being of Nigeria on the land, and environmental issues. The conflict over the Bakassi Peninsula and other border areas between Nigeria and Cameroon revolves around the environment and the possible resources that could be acquired by each country from the environment, such as oil and rich fishes. There is both a direct and indirect impact of the environment has had on the conflict. Each country would directly benefit from the underdeveloped oil reserves in the Bakassi region, but the land dispute in the Lake Chad region had displaced fishermen as a result of drought and desertification. Habitat loss. Now, when we talk about habitat loss, Lake Chad had decreased in size from about an average of 4,000 square miles in the dry season in the 1960s to only 839 square miles presently. Researchers do not believe this is due to global warming, but rather a dominion effect of human actions relating to climate variations and increasing demands of an expanding population that has led to one of Africa's largest freshwater lakes shrinking dramatically in the last 40 years. The problem is that the overgrazing of animals reduces vegetation in the region, which reduces the ecosystem's ability to recycle moisture back into the atmosphere. This contributes to fewer monsoons where the lake historically receives most of its water, and consequently droughts, which are generated an increase in the need of lake water for irrigation of crops. Additionally, the Sahara Desert has gradually edged southward, further exacerbating the desertification problem. Now, the further level of dispute, talking about military and civilian fatalities, the conflict over sovereignty to the Bakassi Peninsula between Nigeria and Cameroon is much more than just a dispute over a boundary, but also includes the issues of national identity and environmental changes affecting local fishermen and farmers that created a need for a porous border. Added to the dispute is the concern of the Anglophone Cameroon secessionist movement and the Nigerian migrant community in disputed territory areas, which further complicates the situation. The border dispute over the Bakassi Peninsula in the Gulf of Guinea, the 1,500-kilometer border between Cameroon and Nigeria, and several areas along the Chad region. The dispute can be narrowed into two main issues: the fight for the Bakassi Peninsula associated with the potential oil development and fisheries of the peninsula shores, and the partial resolved over certain areas of the Lake Chad region associated with nationalist ties of several groups to the land as a result of colonialism. In essence, there are two concurrent issues at hand: the potential for environmental damage resulting from oil development and excessive fishing in the Bakassi region, and the potential for further violence as Amazonians, Francophone Cameroonians, Nigerians, and the inhabitants of the Bakassi Peninsula, especially the ethnic context, the regions, demarcated areas of the border decision by the International Court of Justice. In terms of the environmental issue, in recent years, the Chad has flooded numerous times, forcing local fishermen to either become farmers or move with the changing shoreline, causing them to cross international borders in the process. This has further exacerbated nationalistic tensions in the region. Now, let us look at environmental conflict, link, and dynamics. Now, the case is an indirect conflict over an environmental issues that have been ongoing for decades, especially since the end of colonialism in Nigeria and Cameroon. Nigeria and Cameroon are states that are in conflict, even though the International Court of Justice awarded the peninsula to Cameroon in 2002. The FE consider themselves Nigerian and do not want to become Cameroon citizen because they have a historical and linguistic ties in Nigeria, shown by the arrow from the peninsula to the FE box. The Amazonian feel more linguistically linked to Nigeria, but also feel they are the rightful owners of Bakassi because they were removed from that land under the numerous transfer of power between Germany, Britain, and France during the colonialism. Both Nigeria and Cameroon are depleting their natural resources through overfishing and the desertification of the Sahara. The Amazonians and their Francophone Cameroonians have differing ties to Cameroon and the Bakassi Peninsula as the region was arbitrarily divided under colonial power. Although the official outcome of the dispute is a victory for Cameroon, who legally acquired Bakassi, the two states are in a stalemate over the physical handover of the land. Since breaking its promise to hand over the territory by September 15, 2000, Nigeria still controls 2/3 of the peninsula. International Court of Justice gives judgment in Cameroon Nigerian boundary dispute. The Hague, 10th October, the International Court of Justice, principal organ of the United Nations, has given judgment on the case concerning the land and the maritime boundaries between Cameroon and Nigeria. In that instance, in this judgment, which is final without appealing and binding for the parties, the court determines as follows that the course of the boundary from north to south between Cameroon and Nigeria. In the Lake Chad area, the court decided that the boundary is delimited by the Thompson-Marshall Declaration of 1929, as incorporated in the Anderson-Fiora Exchange of Notes of 1931 between Great Britain and France. It finds that the boundaries starts in the lake from the Cameroon, Nigeria, Chad trade point, whose coordinates it defines and follows a straight line to the mouth of River Ibeji, as it was in 1931, whose coordinates it as defined and then run in a straight line to the point where the river today divides into two branches. Between Lake Chad and the Bakassi Peninsula, the court confirms that the boundary is delimited by the following instrument. One, from the point where the river Ibeji bifurcates as far as China Peak by the Thompson Marshall, the Declaration of 1929, as incorporated in the Anderson Bureau exchange of notes. Now, the point 2 from China's Park Peak to Pillar 64 referred to in Article 12 of the Anglo-German Agreement of March 11 and 12 April 1913. The court examined point by point 17 sectors of the land boundaries and specified for each one how the above mentioned instruments are to be interpreted. In Bakassi, the court decided that the boundaries delimited by the Anglo-German Agreement of 11 March 1933, and that sovereignty over Bakassi Peninsula lies with the Cameroon. Now, he decided also that in the area that the boundary flows, the towers of the river Akpakuru, dividing the Groove Island, the Mangrove Island near Ikang in the way shown in the map, as far as the straight line joining Bakassi Point and King Point. As regards the maritime boundary, the court having established that it is a jurisdiction, it has jurisdiction to address this aspect of the case 3/3, which Nigeria had disputed the report of physics court of the course of the boundary between the two states' maritime areas. In its judgment, the court requests Nigerian expeditiously and without a condition withdraw its administration and military or police force from the area of the Chad, falling within Cameroonian sovereignty and from Bakassi Peninsula. It also requests Cameroon expeditiously and without condition withdraw any administration of military or police force which may be present along the land boundary from Lake Chad to the Bakassi Peninsula or on territories which pursuant to the judgment fall within the sovereignty of Nigeria. The latter has the same obligation in regard to territories in that area which fall within the sovereignty of the Cameroon. The court took note of Cameroon's undertaking, given at the hearing to continue to afford protection to Nigerians living in the Bakassi Peninsula and in the Lake Chad area. Finally, the court rejected Cameroon's self-submission regarding the state responsibility of Nigeria. It likewise rejected Nigeria's counter claim. Now, the second case study is the Nicaragua-Honduras territorial dispute. The Central American dispute of Nicaragua and Honduras have a long history of territorial dispute dating back to the 1906 when they were in dispute over a coastal area. The dispute over these two countries continue today. They are now arguing over a tiny land in the Caribbean called Quezon. And an island rich in natural resources such as fish and oil. Recently, the case has been handled by the Organization of American States, OAS, and taken to the International Court of Justice, and the decision is pending. In 1986, the countries of Honduras and Colombia signed the Caribbean Sea Maritime Limits Treaty, which divided up 12,000 square meters of the Caribbean. In November 1999, Honduras ratified the treaty, which sparked off a dispute between that country and Nicaragua. Nicaragua claims that part of the territory belonged to it, and Honduras did not have the right to sign this territory with Colombia. Nicaragua did not want to lose its rights to a territory which is rich in resources, including petroleum and fish. Nicaragua blamed Honduras for putting troops on the island of Quezon, although a military U.S. attaché claimed that there was no military presence on the island. For Nicaragua, the presence of soldiers on the island would be a security threat and also a violation of a previous agreement between the two countries not to involve the military. Now, legally, several actions have been taken. The Organization of American States named Ambassador Luigi Enado a special representative to handle the dispute between the two countries. The ambassadors met with a representative of both countries, and on March 16th, 2001, vice foreign minister from Nicaragua and Honduras signed an agreement before the ambassador to ease the dispute between the two countries. The document is aimed at promoting confidence and security between the two sides and establishing mechanisms of observation and international vigilance. Also, Nicaragua took the case to the International Court of Justice, which has handled previous territorial dispute between the two countries. On the 8th of December 1999, the Republic of Nicaragua submitted an application to the ICJ. On March 23, 2000, ICJ announced a fixed time limit for submitting any more plea to the case. The court decided that by 21st March 2002, Nicaragua will file a memorial and the Honduras will also file a counter memorial on the same day. So far, the court has not released its judgment. Then we have the football war. Now, the football war, as it is known, also known as in English as the soccer war or the 100 hours war, was a 6-day war fought by El Salvador and Honduras in 1969. The tension between the two nations were reflected by rioting at a football soccer match between them, and but the match was not caused by football, as has been popularly imagined. The war was caused by political difference between Honduras and Salvadorians. Some believe the name is derived from the rioting and football match immediately preceding the war. Others say it refers to the sensational way in which international journalists overlap war reporting with rioting from a series of football matches. The football war is this catchy nickname that has been given to the 1969 war that broke out between the Central American countries of Honduras and El Salvador. Although this was considered a football war, the war goes much more in depth than a Latin American soccer game. The roots of this alarming disagreement on war were issues over land reform and immigration problem. Honduras is more than 5 times the size of neighboring El Salvador. Even though in 1969, El Salvador has a population that was much more than that of Honduras. At the beginning of the 20th century, Salvadorians had begun migrating to Honduras in large numbers. These immigrants made the journey to a new land in the hope of decent jobs and escaping their oppressive government. By 1969, more than 350 Salvadorians are living in Honduras. These Salvadorians now made up 20% of the Honduras peasant population. Meanwhile, by the 1960s, Hondurans began to cry out for land reforms as well. In Honduras, a large majority of land was granted to large landowners or big corporations. This was a very popular trend in Latin America, and still it is to this day. The United Fruit Company, in fact, had ownership of 10% of the country. It is hard for the average landowners to compete. In 1966, the United Fruit Company banded together with many other large companies to create La Federación Nacional de Agricultura Ganados and the Honduras, the National Federation of Farmers and Livestock Farmers of Honduras. FINA was a very anti-compassion as well as anti-Salvadorian. This group put pressure on the Honduran President General Lopez Arellano to protect the property rights of wealthy landowners via a propaganda campaign. This led to violent nationalism spreading throughout the Honduran state. Honduras then began targeting Salvadoran immigrants, especially by means of beating, torture, and killing. In 1969, Honduras successfully enacted a new land reform law. This law took land away from Salvadoran immigrants and redistributed this land to native-born Honduras people. The land was taken from both immigrant farmers and squatters, regardless of their right to ownership and the status of their migration. Thus, thousands of Salvadorians were displaced by this law and were forced to migrate once again. Salvadorians newspaper then heightened the already stressed relationship between the two countries by showing the many atrocities being committed against Salvadorians in Honduras. Hate and dislike towards Honduras began to be displayed all across El Salvador. Now, the social situation in both countries in the run-up to the war was explosive, and their military government were looking for a convenient cause towards which to direct their national political concern. National media in both countries encouraged hatred towards the citizens of the other, eventually provoking the expulsion from Honduras of thousands of Salvadoran laborers, including both temporary harvest workers and long-term settlers. The general rise in tension ultimately led to a military conflict that served to direct the attention of the citizenry of both countries outward rather than in on their own internal affairs, leaving both armies rearmed and destroying the Central American economic integration that had been expressed in the Central American Common Market economy. Now, under whose trade rules, the richer Salvadorian economy gained much ground relative to the Honduras war itself. Now, this existing tension between the two countries were inflamed by rioting during the second North American qualifying round of the 1970 FIFA World Cup. On July 4, 1969, the Salvadoran army launched an attack against Honduras. The Organization of American States negotiated a ceasefire, which took effect on July 20th, with the Salvadoran troops withdrawing in early August. 11 years later, the two nations signed a peace accord, a peace treaty on October 30th, 1980, to put the border dispute before the International Court of Justice. In 1992, the court awarded most of the disputed land, disputed territory to Honduras, and in 1998, Honduras and El Salvador signed another demarcation treaty to implement the terms of the ICJ decree. As at the beginning of 2006, demarcation had not yet been completed, but Honduras and El Salvador maintained normal diplomatic and trade relations. The war was fought at a time when tension between the two countries were building due to competition in the famous qualifying games of the FIFA World Cup tournament. The first game took place in the Honduran capital, with Honduras winning the game. The second game took place in the Salvadorian capital, San Salvador, with a home team win. The game was in a deadlock, with each country gaining a reverse sense of pride and legitimacy. The Honduran press exploited existing tension by creating allegedly false and certainly misleading reports of rapes, beating, murder, the burning of cars, and riots by Honduran citizens in El Salvador. In the meantime, Honduran citizens and security forces also perpetrated attacks on the Salvadorian immigrants. El Salvador dissolved all ties with Honduras on June 26, 1969, stating that the government of Honduras had not taken any effective measures to punish these crimes, which constituted genocide, nor has it given assurance of indemnification or reparations for the damages caused the Salvadorians. This led to regular border clashes occurring between the two nations. Early on the morning of July 14, 1969, concerted military action began in what came to be known as a football war. The football war, the day after the fighting had begun, the Organization of American States met in an urgent session and called for an immediate ceasefire and a withdrawal of El Salvador forces from Honduras. El Salvador resisted the pressure from the Organization of American States for several days, demanding that Honduras first agree to pay reparation to the for the attacks on Salvadorian citizens and guarantee the safety of those who suffered loss. And El Salvador, which had refused to withdraw its troops from the occupied territory, withdrew its troops on August 2nd, 1969. On this date, Honduras also guaranteed the Salvadorian President Fidel Sanchez Hernandez that the Honduran government would provide adequate safety for the Salvadorians still living in Honduras. the war is often cited as the last occasion in which piston engine fighters fought each other, both sides, deploying former World War, Second World War American types P-51 Mustang, F-4U, and also strikers. Sky trains converted into bombers saw actions. Now, the Salvadorian Air Force was so out of shape that they reverted to dropping bombs by hand from the windows of their plane. Consequently, let us look at some of the consequences. In the end, at the end, the football war led to a statement with both countries suffering extensive casualty. Some 20,000 Hondurans and another 80,000 Salvadorians were displaced due to the battle. Many Salvadorians had been forcibly exiled and had fled from the war-torn Honduras, only to enter a Salvadorian country in which the government was not welcoming. Most of these fleeing people were forced to provide for themselves with very little assistance at all. Over the next few years, approximately 130,000 Salvadorians tried to return to their native land where they were surrounded by overpopulation and extreme poverty. In Honduras, about 250 combatant combat troops and around 2,000 civilians have been killed over a period of 4 years because the war basically took place on Honduran soil. Thousands more had also been ultimately made homeless as well. Trade between Honduras and El Salvador had also been greatly disrupted, and the national border had been officially closed. This damaged the economies of these nations tremendously and threatened the Central American common market. Essentially, both sides lost the war. Neither gained a decisive military victory, and the death toll, approximately 4,000, was shared approximately between the two countries. The war led to a 22-year suspension of the Central American common market. The territory problem between, let us look at another case study, the territory problem between Ecuador and Peru, the Zamora-Santiago question. That is the principal aspect. The Protocol of Rio de Janeiro dated January 29, 1942, signed between Ecuador and Peru under circumstances which the Ecuadorian territory and sovereignty were subject to armed coercion, suffered from a basic geographic error because of the inexistence of one of the features which should serve as a boundary line. The Protocol of Rio de Janeiro between Ecuador and Peru, in addition to being the result of the armed coercion, suffered from an essentially geographical error. The Divotum Aquarium between the Zamora and Santiago rivers, stated in the protocol does not, the real protocol does not exist. Instead, there are two watersheds, one between the Zamora and Cenepa rivers, and another between the Cenepa and the Santiago rivers. El Condor Mountains range is not the watershed between the Zamora and Santiago rivers, but rather between the Zamora and Cenepa rivers. The permanent diplomatic actions of Ecuador from 1949 to 1959 did not bring any result in order to set up a special needs commission entrusted with the task of renaissance and study of the Zamora-Santiago zones, particularly the course of the Cenepa River, with the purpose of verifying the geographical reality. The Peruvian attitude of refusing the Ecuadorian reasons under the arbitrary agreement that there is no problem whatsoever is absolutely unacceptable. However, President Fomojori has accepted the existence of the problem in 1991, and the Peruvian foreign minister has also recognized the problem in the Organization of American States General Assembly of 1992. Peru may deny validity of the Ecuadorian position, but it should technically prove the basis of its negation by means of the geographical data. From the judicial point of view, neither the Protocol of Rio de Janeiro set forth air conduct mountains range as boundary, nor have awarded award of arbitral that was 1945 could have established it, because the real extension and the importance of the Senipa River was only established in 1947 with the aerophotogrammatic map of the Zamora Santiago area. In this region, consequently, does not exist delimitation or demarcation boundaries. The zone without delimitation has been always Cocodero, as proved by judicial ties and several relevant documentation recognizing the areas where the military attack of Peru have taken place lies within the Zamora Santiago zone, over which Peru lacks a right. Global politics is now witnessing a change from the era of political jingoism to that of a cooperative joint problem-solving techniques through reference of issues that could disturb global peace to the International Court of Justice. Further, provision is made for those poor states to tap from the resources of special funds to prosecute these cases, which could encourage egalitarian standing of any case by any state, big or small, rich or poor, before it. The idea of non-availability of funds to prosecute a case is no longer tenable. It is also important to note that the court, through its pronouncement, is preaching good governance, as some political leaders behave without recourse to what could be at the stake because of the immunity they have. The limit of immunity and the beginning of impunity was stress, which tells any political leader in the globe to act according to civilized norms. If not, the boomerang could be devastating. Be that as it may, African leaders, especially must seek alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, as it is cheaper and takes shorter time to resolve, as opposed to the legal tussle that takes several years with economically impoverished citizens to resolve. Now, let us look at the issues and challenges in the field of global peace. Now, first, specifically analyzing the importance of education of the systemic approach in addressing global politics to give us the desired global peace. The persistent hegemonial tussle between state and non-state actors must give way to mutual respect for each other's points of view. This must, as a matter of fact, be coordinated and reviewed, if not irrespective of the pre-conflict peace-building mechanisms put in place. The much-needed peace may elude everyone on earth. Now, the issues and the challenges of global peace. Scholars have written about state-centric writers who believe in high politics of peace and war, which bring about a military alliance, and the United Nations diplomatic maneuver has been what the global community needs to peace building. However, the role of the specialized agencies in the UN, international government organization, as well as international non-government organization, were relegated to secondary issues involving main policy debates. Yeah, this approach, as a matter of fact, will not assist our search for the much-needed global peace. In a systemic approach, once a government is in place, it should have agencies which must carry out its delegated authorities. For example, if a government has ministries of finance, defense, education, works, and health, and it is about to declare war, it must first look inward to find from the finance ministry how much it has in its kitty. This is with a view of knowing whether if war is declared, it will not hamper the need. It will equally ask other health ministries if sufficient provisions have been made for anticipated victims of war, while the education needs of the population is not only to tell you that in global community, the collaboration of all states and non-state actors is what brings out a working agenda and procedures. and that produces a sustainable peace building a mechanism for further clarification if a serious crisis breaks out. It could be as a result of the breakdown of social, political, and economic systems. However, it should not be left to the state alone. Scientists, religious bodies, NGOs, and other outside the government must rise up to it. And in this instance, if the aforementioned groups get involved in arms control and negotiation, seeing economic issues as crises, social policies as matters of life and death, government may then take the event unfolding as issues of top priority so as to avert full-scale war. In the pursuit of global peace, we are faced with serious challenges where, as a matter of fact, deliberate policies, state-centric approach much give room to a pluralistic model which allows a mutual interaction between government and transnational actors, both bilaterally and multilaterally. Governments specifically or characteristically have the legal authority to control over military capabilities, economic resources, and access to privileged information, communication, and other wherewithal as instruments of cohesion, but cannot claim monopoly of them, as most of their facets are also available to both national actors and international organizations. One of the very many attributes of peace building mechanism is communication. The way this is done must reverberate from the ensuing scenario. Communication is, if done in such a manner that connotes respect for other parties, could drastically de-escalate any tension and bring respect, while a speech to an audience in a public gathering devoid of respect and honor could destroy the solid pillar of conflict resolution already laid. The implication of this is that some major political actors who do not cultivate the art of positive communication often create conflict and lose dignity, while the other non-state actors, NGOs, and other activists could be experts in public speech making, which could earn them the respect of the people, making them the signature of peace building mechanism. In the interest of global peace, an amalgamation of capabilities could be an instrument of peace building. The authority of the type of authority, status, and resources, information, skills that are relevant to political successes are usually issue specific, and they vary. In essence, it is established that government and the transnational companies, the non-governmental organization, and others should inculcate the spirit of preventive diplomacy as espoused in the UN Secretary General's in the 50s and 90s, respectively. 21st century international policies are all occurring within complex and pluralistic dynamism of economic and political integration. In conclusion, one can say, in an era of global politics, dichotomies of high or low politics are only being whipped up to undermine transnational actors as political issues go beyond these two areas. The status of government decision makers and the degree of involvement of transnational actors as well as international organizations determine the weight of the policy so formulated. Concepts of power is multifarious, and so therefore possession of military and economic resources only do not determine power, as issues like status, authority, information, and others are part of what determines power. Now, having said all of this, it would be pertinent to say, let us raise some issues that could warrant our further discussions. Now you can unmute yourself and speak so that I can respond to some of your questions as it were. Yes. Well, as we move into exams next week, I think we have been able to do justice to key issues in this course. We have looked at the different organizations, we have looked at different regional, international organizations, and we have used several case studies to establish our point of international organizations and peace building. It is my expectations and my hope that students should be able to understand what it is to uh, when it comes to issue of peace building and how international organizations have contributed immensely to it. Well, it's a pen on paper exam, and I hope that you will be able to attend to the questions the way they come, and if there are no responses, I think I can just wish you a successful outing. That when your exams come up, with what we have discussed, you should be able to attempt a good number of those questions. And for those of you who are unable to hook up in the live class session, uh, the the link will be uploaded soon, and so you can do an asynchronous learning, listening to our conversation, listen to the points being made, so that you can keep abreast and be ready for your exams. On that note, I want to say thank you for being part of the class, and I wish you success in your forthcoming exams. So I want to say thank you. See you some other time. Wishing you the best of all. Thank you.